Are investors right to be alarmed about the state of the economy?
Well, the good news is that this is the longest expansion that the United States has ever had. And at some point, expansions run out of steam, especially when you have some worrisome public policy developments. And I think that years and years of easy money policy from the Fed have created a certain amount of instability and volatility in markets. And more importantly, I think that the administration's protectionism is a very, very troubling sign, the kind of thing that could really sort of push the economy in the wrong direction.
We've heard the president calling for a larger rate cut from the Fed, and he tweeted out today the Fed rate over a fairly short period of time should be reduced by at least 100 basis points, with perhaps some quantitative easing as well. If that happens, our economy would be even better, and the world economy would be greatly and quickly enhanced, good for everybody. You know what, a lot of people, and I know you have pointed this out as well, is that as the president pushes for additional cuts from the Fed, there are a lot of central banks, primarily the Bank of Japan and the European Central Bank, that have had negative interest rates in place without a big pop. We're talking about technical recession in Germany, potentially. We haven't seen Japan's GDP expand in a significant way. I mean, is this a misunderstanding from the president, or how do you think the Fed rides out this pressure?
Hopefully the Fed just ignores the pressure, because what Trump is basically proposing is the same kind of Keynesian monetary policy that we got under Obama. And at best, that's like pushing on a string. I don't think it really drives the real economy higher. Yes, it might cause the stock market to temporarily go up because of portfolio shifting, but I don't think you actually get more income, more production, more growth out of your real economy just by trying to tinker with monetary policy. If that policy worked, Japan would be an economic superstar over the past 25 years.
There's some questions about how significant the previous rate cut was. Given that it was largely priced in, only a week later we heard the president announce those additional tariffs in September. So it seemed like a lot of those gains were wiped out. How big of a catalyst do you think an additional rate cut in September will likely be, and how big of a boost will that provide to the economy?
Well, I don't think it provides any boost to the economy. It might give a temporary sugar high to the stock market just because of, as I said before, portfolio shifting. But the frustrating thing about the Trump administration is on some policies, they're market-oriented, lower corporate tax rate, some deregulation, removing some red tape that's cluttering up the economy. But on the other hand, this Keynesian monetary policy, all the big spending, he's increasing spending faster than Obama ever dreamed of doing it. And most importantly, again, I think the protectionism is really what's in the back of the minds of people who are worried about a potential downturn in the economy.
Let's talk about U.S.-China trade, certainly the most significant overhang. And over the last few weeks, we've gotten two some would call relief measures. We saw the administration remove some consumer products from that tariff list that's set to take effect in September. And then today, we have the Commerce Department coming out and granting Huawei as well as the American suppliers an extra 90-day window. Does that change the outlook at all for you? Is this just a negotiating tactic, or is this pretty significant for some of these American companies that have been under a lot of pressure because of the tariffs?
It might offer a little bit of temporary relief to a handful of companies. But what Trump is basically doing is saying, I'm going to do something that's this bad, but then I'm going to sort of water it down a little bit so it's this bad. It's still bad news. Now, don't get me wrong. There are protectionist elements of the Chinese economic system that it would be wonderful if Trump could fix them. But by going with this sort of protectionism in-your-face approach, rather than using the WTO, I think Trump is actually undermining his own ability to get some what would be very desirable changes out of the Chinese leadership.
What do you think this means for a lot of these businesses who have made it very clear they've held back on some of the investments, some of the capex, because of the uncertainty? Is this likely to, push them to maybe invest a bit more? I mean, what does this mean if you are a company that is getting pulled from both sides, the U.S. as well as the Chinese side?
I think investors generally and companies specifically don't really know what to expect. What is Trump going to do on China in 3 months and 6 months? What's he going to do on these Section 232 potential auto tariffs and fighting with the European Union? What's going to happen with this NAFTA 2.0? There are all sorts of just hand grenades out there that the administration has thrown into the economy. We don't know which ones are going to blow up. We don't know when they're going to blow up. We don't know if Trump has something else in the back of his mind where he's going to pick a new trade fight with another one of our partners out there. So the bottom line is everything we've seen for the last 2+ years teaches us what we should have learned during the Great Depression, which is that protectionism is like throwing sand in the gears of the economy. What we should be doing is going out and negotiating really good free trade agreements with the UK now that they're extricating themselves from the European Union. We should do another one with Switzerland. And for that matter, we should set out to do them with the entire world.
Okay, Dan, it's good to see you today. I appreciate you joining us. Dan Mitchell joining us from Washington, D.C.